For almost 40 years, Carrie's Place has been providing support services to victims of domestic violence. CEO Jan McDonald says proposed changes to rental laws will go a long way towards breaking down difficult barriers faced by many women.
That they've been punished in the past for making a decision to leave because they're not giving appropriate notice or because they may be leaving a house that's being trashed. And so these changes are really starting to see that this is not a fair system and that we need to do something differently.
The new laws would allow tenants to terminate their agreement immediately if there is proof of domestic violence, and also ensure victims aren't penalised for property damage or rental debt.
These reforms make it possible for victims to leave violent relationships without carrying debt, without carrying a bad tenancy record and without carrying back payments.
Service providers say while the changes are a welcome step in the right direction, more still needs to be done to address a shortage of affordable housing.
It's quite simply there's not enough out there, and on top of that we don't have enough crisis responses.
That sentiment echoed by Maitland MP Jenny Aitchison.
There is consistent feedback from every refuge that I speak to that they do not have enough beds, they are all at capacity and they don't have the wraparound counselling services. So we need to get more action on this now.
The reforms are expected to be introduced to Parliament early next year. Renee Feder, NBN News.
Thousands of Novocastrians at risk of stroke without even knowing it.
About 2/3 of patients notice it, but 1/3 of patients don't notice it. And the problem with not noticing it is that it can increase your risk of stroke significantly, about 5-fold.
The condition is known as atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat rhythm which doesn't allow blood to be pumped as efficiently as it should.
It's definitely increasing, and so atrial fibrillation in the next 20 years will probably double.
In Newcastle, 3,000 people have the heart condition. This year alone, it will cause more than 130 strokes. Nationally, it affects around 460,000 Australians and is responsible for 36% of all strokes. One common symptom, a fluttering heart. But there is hope through this simple test. In just 30 seconds, a person can be checked for AF with their heart's rhythm measured through their pulse. People most at risk of atrial fibrillation are those aged over 65 with obesity, diabetes and alcohol, also major risk factors. The advice from doctors: maintain a healthy weight, exercise regularly and limit alcohol intake. The test is available free this week at John Hunter Hospital. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Diving into a virtual reality and an activity designed to engage them in coding and computer science. It's all part of the Science, Maths and Real Technology, or SMART program, being run at the university these school holidays.
They've been looking at visual coding languages, so Blockly and Scratch, but they've also been starting to get a little bit of exposure towards some written coding languages like Python and JavaScript, and they've been having a ball today, so they're really going well.
34 children are taking part in the 2-day workshop. The fun and excitement, as well as the skills learned, giving them a taste of a career in computers and what to expect in years to come.
We're expecting about 44% of jobs of the future, or the jobs we have now, to be disrupted by digital technologies. It's really important that we equip them with the skills that they're going to need for those jobs.
And it seems to be working.
It's been pretty good. I've just been coding, having a lot of fun, doing some shows and stuff. I find computers very interesting with all the stuff they can do.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
Novocastrian Park is a world away from the Emirates Stadium in North London. But the idea of moving from one pitch to the other isn't as far-fetched as it used to be.
We are here, trying to do a bit of a player identification. If someone catches our eye and we do a trip later on in the year, we'll invite them along and see how we all go.
And that's exactly why the new Lambton Eagles linked with the EPL Giants.
So over the last few years we've been introducing holiday programs with different Jets players and first grade players to bring all the kids together, and this year we've now formed a relationship with Arsenal Football School to bring a higher level of expectation for the club.
These types of schools take place all over the world, allowing participating clubs to play in tournaments such as the Australasian Arsenal Cup.
Teams from New Lambton can go and play in those kind of events from year to year, so it should be great.
Still on football, and the dates for the FFA Cup's round of 32 fixtures have been announced, with the Jets to host Melbourne Victory at Broadmeadows Magic Park on August 3. The Edgeworth Eagles travel to Cairns to face the Far North Queensland Heat on July 27, while the Lambton Jaffers will make the trip to Tasmania to play Devonport on August 10.
It's such an honour to chuck on the green and gold every single time. Doesn't matter whether it's a Test match or a World Cup. I think it means the same every single time. Hopefully I have the chance to put it back on, to go to New Zealand and then to chuck it on again to go to the World Cup, but we'll see.
We have had national titles here in Australia, but now we're looking at heading overseas a little bit more. It challenges the kids a little bit more. Not only from January through till now have they been training for all-star teams, but they were also trying to be competition ready for America or Hawaii. So now they're on a really short rein to try and get ready for a competition called Battle, which is a 2-day event.
Paving the way for a new Newcastle, a flashy animation bringing to life the Baird government's vision for the former heavy rail corridor.
We've done a lot of listening, we've done a lot of thinking, and now we come out with the product, the outcome of those conversations.
Starting at Newcastle train station, the proposal includes a web of walkways and greenery linking the Foreshore and Hunter Street. Development begins just east of Wolf Street, with building heights ranging between 3 and 4 stories and up to 9 west towards Honeysuckle.
We're not talking about high-rise buildings through the railway corridor. Instead, we're talking about buildings that fit in with the existing environment.
So we've matched the existing heights for areas around the locations that we said we think we would be well served by development.
At Derby Street, the corridor is replaced by an urban plaza, while mixed development lines Civic Lane. All up, the proposal covers 4¼ hectares. The government says more than half of that will be open space.
For these spaces that we've created, we see a real intensity there. So something's on every weekend. Somebody's programmed those activities. People come into Newcastle or visit Newcastle because of those activities.
The plans now rest with Newcastle Council and will go up for public comment before any final decisions are made.
This is the opportunity to transform and truly restore and revitalise the city centre.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
The smouldering remains of a family home at Raymond Terrace, a blackened interior and collapsed roof indicating the ferocity of the blaze. The emergency began around 9 a.m. when a young occupant smelled smoke.
Went looking for it and smoke was escalating, so she grabbed the kids and got out.
The Holwell Circuit property was engulfed when fire crews arrived. A car and coffee van in the driveway were also alight. Blown out windows revealed the charred remains of a bedroom and ceiling fan. Today's strong winds only aided the fire's spread and fed hotspots.
In this case, it's pushed the fire right through the house. My concern was that it could easily spread to neighbouring properties.
The source of the blaze may have been electrical, prompting a warning for people to be mindful of overloading circuits.
With the weather conditions, it's cold, so people are looking for ways to keep warm.
There were similar scenes at Weston, with William Thompson left salvaging what remained after an early morning fire ripped through his back sheds. A camper trailer, barbecue and family heirlooms were lost in the blaze. Thankfully, his mother, who was nearby, managed to escape unharmed.
She was gotten out by some neighbours and she went and stayed with a friend. As you can see, there's some loose sheets of tin around, so we'll have to fix that up.
Georgina Smythe, NBN News. Built in 1944, the former news hub has seen a lot of change. The ABC studios were decommissioned in 1993 and have been used as office space ever since. Now they're being transformed into luxury apartments.
It's one of the adaptive reuse buildings of Newcastle that's going to certainly be known for a long time.
While developers are keen to incorporate modern design into the apartments, they're also hoping to cash in on the building's boutique aspects. This is the station's former TV studio where a grand piano was played during live music performances. Other areas include newsrooms and sound booths.
The builders did have quite a few challenges, but there was such a great building asset here. Some of the walls are 5 courses of bricks thick.
It's the latest case of developers seeing new potential in old buildings. Newcastle East Public School is being redeveloped just around the corner. And the East End's historic Victoria Theatre is also set to get some much-needed TLC after being purchased late last year. The Broadcast House development will feature 5 luxury apartments. They're set to go on the market at the end of the year. Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
A sea of fans, Newcastle making Delta Goodrem feel right at home. The much-loved female artist today met those who have followed her journey ahead of her national Wings of the Wild tour, which will get underway here.
I'm thrilled to come to Newcastle. I mean, even on my very first tour, I kicked off my tour in Newcastle, so it kind of only made sense that on this tour now, you know, that we kick off the shows in October, 27, coming over here. I thought, well, we've got the album out now, and why not go and visit? I mean, like, it's a beautiful place to come.
The line had been building for hours, filled with those wanting to get up close and personal with the singer. And they were rewarded with signed copies of her album, a photo, even a hug. But there was one fan in particular Delta was eager to meet, local Lyme disease survivor Talia Smith.
You know, you've got to stay focused on in your body and making sure that you've got, you know, everything, that you're doing the best you can for yourself.
Oh, it's amazing. She's so inspirational, and just to, you know, have her say that she's heaps proud of me that I'm a girl was nice. And yeah, she's an amazing person and inspires a lot of people, not just me.
Between being a coach on The Voice and her starring role in Cats the Musical, Delta's profile continues to grow. With that comes added scrutiny, but this down-to-earth beauty has some advice she clings to.
I just kind of always just say, like, stay true to knowing who you are and don't let anyone project their problems onto you of what they see you as when that's not you. So you just have to kind of really stay strong in a moment when it's a bit more intense, and then you have to just get through it and know that in the end your true intention comes out.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
She was a late addition to the Hunters after playing in the UK, and Shannon Novosel wasn't sure how good her new team would be.
Well, I wasn't expecting an undefeated season. The competition has been pretty close to what it was in Scotland, and I think it's just been a challenge every game. We have to come out ready to play.
With 3 games left before the finals, Newcastle needs just one more victory to guarantee top spot. But its quest for the championship won't include Katie Ray Ebzery. She's expected to be named in the Opal squad for Rio.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have stepped up in her absence, but we know, she's out playing for the Opals team, so she's still being a leader off the court, but it's been exciting to see the team grow.
As for Novacell, the 29-year-old has spoken to Ebzery about opportunities in the WNBL and has also attracted offers from Europe.
A couple in Amsterdam and Copenhagen and possibly Barcelona, but I'm thinking maybe I might head back to the US for a little while and then maybe look forward to coming back here.
The Hunters women play Manly in their final home game on Sunday. Tip-off is at 1 p.m, while the men's team plays at 3.
Can't do enough for the club at the moment, the Knights, and to get these kids coming through. It's tough times at the clubs, but I'm sure over years a couple of these kids will go on and hopefully wear the red and blue. Grizz is always a competitor, and that's what we want in the club at the moment. And Danny Levi might have to put his back surgery off to see how Tyler Randall is with a rib issue. But hopefully Danny's okay, and he can push on for a few more weeks. And Chris Adams, I'm sure he'll get a bit of a run over the next 6 weeks.
It's the announcement that will see thousands out of work, a win for animal rights activists, devastation for those in the Hunters greyhound racing industry who were doing the right thing.
Some minority group have really damaged and hurt long-term the well-being of a lot of great people. Their source of income via racing, breeding, training has now been cut from them. So the financial strain on them alone is going to be horrendous.
The Hunter was in the spotlight last year when a property near Cessnock was investigated following claims of a mass greyhound gravesite. There were also reports of live baiting in the region. Gary Brown is a third-generation greyhound trainer and CEO of Newcastle Greyhounds. He's seen major reform within the last year, leaving many trainers confused by today's announcement. It's been applauded by the RSPCA, which also works to rehome abandoned race dogs.
There's not a stigma that comes with greyhounds. They're not these dogs that are just only for racing and overly energetic. They're actually really soft-natured animals, and I just want to make sure that a lot of people know about that.
Concern now turning to the lives of tens of thousands of dogs without a racing future. This afternoon, Greyhound Racing New South Wales suspended racing for the next 7 days, But that didn't stop the action in Maitland, the dogs hitting the track in what could mark the end of an era. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Movement on Newcastle's old rail corridor. The government's plan revealed on NBN News last night includes walkways, greenery and mixed development. But the Greens say it does nothing but prove what they've suspected all along.
What we've seen from Urban Growth is a proposal to rezone 4 hectares of public land.
The blueprint includes rezoning the corridor from railway infrastructure to retail, commercial and residential use.
Open public space and public domain is the key to revitalising the CBD, so that's a very positive aspect.
The plan also leaves room for taller buildings in the city's west. Opponents say the corridor could better service the community.
I could potentially see other uses for it, but I think that there absolutely needs to be some public transport in this corridor because of the way that Newcastle is shaped.
Newcastle Council also critical of the Baird government's vision for the city.
We are going to be given a say on this proposed development, which is good, but we are not going to be given a say on the light rail route by the looks of things. And that is really where the crux of the issue is for council.
The state government has stressed the proposal is not a development application and it'll be up to Newcastle Council to consider it before submitting it to the Department of Planning. The proposal will then be put back on public exhibition. Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
We believe that there are a number of flaws in the delegates' report. We are also very concerned at the cost to ratepayers.
It's significant structural reform that the region can prosper from into the many years to come.
Connor Schill dreams of becoming a fighter pilot.
I just have a really big interest in the Air Force, the military in general, and all the aircraft and technology they get to play with.
And today, the 16-year-old got a taste of Top Gun life, thanks to the Air Force and the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
The reality is it's just a tremendous dedication, and Connor has definitely demonstrated much of that, and you'll get a chance to have a bit of fun today and see what that's like.
Connor and his family came all the way from Lithgow to fulfil his wish after he overcame cancer.
The 14th of October in 2014, he was starting to get headaches and he ended up being diagnosed with a brain tumour.
First, a close-up look at a Hawk lead-in fighter. Then it was time to jump in the hot seat of an FA-18 Hornet flight simulator. After a bit of target practice, there was a chance to let rip. Connor proving a natural at the controls.
A lot harder than the video games, yeah.
If you've got kids, you know how bad it is if they're sick, and all you want them to be is happy and well, and that's all that matters in life, really.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
Putting in the hard yards in the rain this morning, Kurt Fernley remains focused on Rio, the fire well and truly burning.
You haven't tasted Paralympic gold since Beijing.
Oh, rub it in, big fella. Bloody hell. Find that open wound.
Preparation for his 5th and final games is on track. He's just returned from a record-breaking win in the Gold Coast Marathon.
Absolutely awesome. It's Kurt Fernley.
Now he's hoping to end his stellar Paralympic career on the podium.
I go there with the chance to put an underline underneath the last 16 years of my racing career at a Paralympic level. I have no idea what's in store, but I know I'll go there and I'm in great shape and I'm going to give everything to see if I can end up the pointy end of the finish line.
Training with him, Reid McCracken, the Bundaberg local, is eyeing his second games and is considered a serious medal chance in the 100 and 800.
At this stage, everything seems to be going smooth, and I'm feeling good. Had a win in Switzerland in May, so hopefully that means something.
Also in red-hot form, Christy Dawes, who smashed the women's mark in the Gold Coast Marathon by more than 2 minutes.
That means I'm guaranteed a seat on the plane, where before the race this morning I was not.
Her focus now also turns to Rio and a potential 6th Games.
I'm addicted to the sport. I love it. I love that it turns a stereotype of disability on its head. We're not sickly or poorly. We are some of the fittest, strongest, healthiest people in the community.
The coach behind their success, Andrew Dawes, is just as much a champion.
Without Dawsey, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I wouldn't have started. I wouldn't have had that first taste of success. I wouldn't be here 16 years later, no doubt.
All 3 are expected to be officially named in the Australian team in the coming days.
I was lucky enough to play in the 16s and 18s in the last 2 years, so to go up into the under 20s is really good and something I obviously don't take for granted.
Richard Howard has seen his fair share of wins and losses, but nothing has cut quite as deep as this.
It's torn me apart and the family.
The Hunter Valley trainer and breeder coming to grips with the Premier's decision to sign the industry's death warrant.
It's hurt everybody, from breeders to racers, rearers, educators, the whole lot.
Ken Cheetham knows better than most the impact the ban will have here in the Hunter. He's been racing greyhounds for 63 years.
It's not correct, it's not right.
The industry legend says change was inevitable, and since the live baiting scandal broke, there's been headway.
We've done everything they ask us to do, and now to come out and shut the industry down, it's wrong.
There's been a groundswell of opposition since yesterday's announcement, with local trainers vowing to fight for their industry. The ban has Labor seeing red.
Mike Baird has not thought through any of the detail here.
Concerns too over the future of regional showgrounds, which rely on racing revenue.
Take it to the Parliament, let the stakeholders, let the community have their say on this issue.
Amongst the anger, applause from animal rescuers who say the Premier has taken a bold step in the right direction.
I hail it as a very strong and significant decision.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
there's no place for this type of not turning up and petty games by these Liberal councillors in Newcastle. The expectation of the community is we'll turn up and deal with the issues as they arise.
It's Newcastle's most iconic site, Nobby's Headland, or as it's now also known, Waibagumba, following the approval of a Newcastle Council dual naming proposal. 8 sites across the region have been recognised by their Indigenous names. Port Hunter also becomes Yuwaba, the Hunter River, Cookwan, and Hexham Swamp, Barunganbeen, after the Geographical Names Board cleared the recommendation that was tabled 4 years ago. It doesn't change their existing names. Instead, it means that they'll now have 2, described as similar to Uluru and Ayers Rock.
I know local school children learn about the story of the kangaroo's tail and how Waibagamba and Nobby's got its name, its Indigenous name. So I think it is fantastic. I believe over time people will become very familiar with the Indigenous names, and maybe there could be a time in the future where those iconic landmarks around this area are known by their Indigenous names.
After such a long approval process, Council says it's perfect timing to coincide with NAIDOC Week. "10 days of being pushed to their limit, but Billy Peden and Mark Hughes are still on a high.
It was just one of those emotional, wonderful trips that none of us are ever going to forget.
I think Mark was quoted as saying in the challenge that we asked for a challenge, we certainly got one.
What started as nothing more than a thought.
I was just sitting at home or at a friend's place on Christmas Day, and I just had this feeling that we could do more.
Soon became this, riding 120 kilometres from Papua New Guinea's north to the Kokoda Trail, walking it, and riding another 50 kilometres to the Port Moresby finish.
It meant a lot to us to be walking for a real reason.
The goal, to raise $50,000. As it stands, that figure has been tripled.
Which is just astonishing. I still can't believe the money we raised.
And for the crew taking part, it was also a chance to support a close friend.
Just 2 or 3 years ago, he was having brain surgery, and here he was charging up and down the hills and mountains in PNG, and made it a bit hard to complain about our sore little legs.
For a foundation going from strength to strength, the funds will be used to step up its research into treating brain cancer.
The best thing we can do is find better treatments and better outcomes for patients. So that's our main priority.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
Top of the ladder after a soaring win against Maitland, the Scorpions haven't lost in 8 games, but any talk of a minor premiership is premature, according to the coach.
We like to worry about ourselves, so I don't care if people say we're underdogs, we're favourites, whatever. We just worry about what we're doing at Macquarie.
Macquarie put 42 points on Maitland on the weekend. Most would call that a comfortable win, but the Scorpions coach is a harsh critic.
It wasn't our best performance by far. We were very scrappy. We didn't really go out and execute a game plan really well. And we know definitely if we turn up and do that this week against Curry, then there's no way the scoreline will be the same.
3 points separate the top 5 teams. Another side in the mix, Souths, will be looking to break into the top 2 when they come up against Central on Sunday.
Central up there, it's a tough place to go and win. I mean, with the weather and things like that, it's yes, it definitely brings teams back to an even playing field.
Coming back from a 16-4 scoreline at half-time against rivals Wests, Jared Flanagan, a standout, scoring a hat-trick and producing this remarkable try-saving effort in the first half. Souths take plenty of confidence into round 11, but won't be underestimating their competition.
If you start taking teams too lightly, you'll fall outside that 5. So, yeah, we'll take it one game at a time.
In the other matches, second-placed Lakes United take on Cessnock at Carl Oval tomorrow, and Wests are at home against the Pickers on Sunday. Just under a month out from Rio, Newcastle's Katie Ray Ebsery's been training her entire life to make her Olympic debut.
It would be amazing. I mean, it's sort of everything I've been working towards and, you know, why I've sort of grown up playing basketball.
The Opal's preparation is coming to the pointy end and unfortunately cuts need to be made. 52 has been reduced down to 15 and now 3 more need to go.
3 of the players are in the WNBA and we've got 12 players here. So over the next couple of days we have to make the decision of who the 12 is.
It is tough when it gets down to it, but we all know it's for a common goal, I guess, and that selections are a part of it.
Coach Brendan Joyce will be the man to wield the axe. He believes this squad has what it takes to medal in Brazil.
I think most people would tell you today that our style of play is fairly aggressive on the offensive end and the defensive end.
Fellow Novocastrian Susie Batkovic is a mainstay in the Opal setup, and while the sport has taken the pair far and wide, for Ebsery, there's no question where it all began.
I'm up there as much as possible and in and around the basketball scene and playing with the Hunters girls a little bit this off-season. So it's, yeah, Newcastle's very close to my heart.
A transformation more than a decade in the making, and Singleton's mayor couldn't be happier.
Well, we've got a park back again. Yeah, that's right.
Life has returned to Burdekin Park, the screech of bats replaced by children's laughter. The chainsaws moved in May, removing 40 trees and pruning several others. State government approval providing the solution to a long-running and heated debate.
It's been an emotional time for the town and the community, and I'm just so pleased that we've been able to get permission to do this work.
At its worst, the park was home to 50,000 flying foxes, and as you can see, some are still here, but council hopes to move them on over time. The park's reopening is reason to celebrate for volunteers at Singleton's museum following its forced closure.
It's like being overseas on a long trip and coming back and there it is, you're home.
Council will now develop a plan of management in case the Flying Foxes return. It'll also seek public help to design the park's new look.
We've got to develop it back into a community park, and the community will have the say in that.
It'd be nice to see the concerts back in the park. We used to have concerts over in the Rotunda all the time, and we used to have Christmas here.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
One being a local guy that surfs out here, and his family has been struck with cancer, unfortunately. And then another, which is within the community, people may recall a father lost his life in Boomerang saving his two sons. So the East End Board Riders Club has come together and suggested that we donate to those two worthy causes.
It's a sport as unique as it can be challenging.
It is a little harder, yeah, technique on holding onto that brick and getting some distance out of it.
Stroud's brick and rolling pin throwing competition has been part of the town's history for 56 years. For the first time ever, the event didn't go ahead last year. The showground closed for months in the wake of the April storm. But today, record crowds returned to the area, organisers claiming 2016 to be the best year yet.
We weren't able to be here last year, but we're back and we're alive and we're well.
The contest is internationally recognised, but it's the local faces who make up the toughest competition. Port Stephens woman Melissa Holohan was back to defend her 2014 title, and that she did.
I'm a hammer thrower, so I have an athletics background. And yeah, I just come along to this for a little bit of fun. It's a stem on from my athletics and throwing, and it's obviously different. It's not often you get to throw a rolling pin.
Wild Wild West was the theme of the day, and all ages gave it a go. Some having a little more success than others.
It is quirky, it's different, and people just don't, you've got to see it to understand how it works.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
.70, and that'll lock it in for Rhiannon Iflin.
Taking first place, she cannot believe it.
After beating Hamilton, the Waratahs were looking for another upset against the Wanderers. Big hits and spills early on. It was the visitors who drew first blood, but a charge down minutes later saw the home side return the favour. A blow to the Tars, distressing scenes as Mark Grinham lay motionless on the pitch. The Wanderers now down to 14 and the visitors capitalised, finding plenty of space down the left before sending it wide for the game's first 5-pointer. With a 4-point lead, the Tars were on the back foot early in the second. Luke Simmons pushing the difference out to 6, tensions soon blowing over. The Blues were handed a yellow, then a red, the Reds were handed a yellow and a red, and the crowd was gifted a rainbow. With a 9-point lead, the Wanderers showed their class. Elliot Jennings securing the win for the Blues, cementing their spot at the top of the NHRU ladder.